America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live every Monday and Thursday about this time to talk to you about the issues of the day. Thursday, I'll probably be talking about Israel and Palestine and what happened in Gaza. But for today, I'm going to talk about why our life is PG. And PG doesn't mean for kids. It means there is parental guidance that is necessary, right? In the absence of parental guidance, you get kind of a mess. And it's not obvious that this is the case. And people get confused because they see these people who had strong, thoughtful, intelligent parental guidance for a very short period of time, and they end up fine. But maybe their dad died at like 10 or 12, or they had to move, so something happened and the family was split up. But what they had was strong and rigorous parental guidance up until then, right? Or they get very good parental guidance from people who aren't technically their parents, maybe grandparents. And so this all gets confused, and it's not obvious that life is PG, which means not for kids, but it means like it requires parental guidance, because we're dealing with institutions that have been made sophisticated for generations. And so you need kind of a generational approach to them in order to have some sort of internal logic of them, or else you're just kind of gambling with them, or you're living a life on someone else's terms, insofar as you are, you're not really in control because you don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of dealing with the institutions of the world, not as someone who's knowledgeable, but as someone who's kind of an outsider gambling on them. And that's a lot of the life of people with broken families. They deal with the world as outsiders, and maybe they kind of ride that outsiderish knowledge or like accumulated wisdom into success, but mostly they fail. And when I say life is also PG, one of the biggest population of people who are just kind of screwed in this predatory world are people who aged out of the foster care system. I'm not talking about exceptions. I'm talking about rules. As a rule, those people are screwed. If you age out of the foster care system, or even if you're kind of in it, your life is just not going to be what it should be in a well-ordered world, because our institutions depend on you coming from a certain sort of family, right? And people say that, well, our society is just anti-kids, and that's not strictly true. It's anti-children from people who don't come from the right families, right kind of families. If you come from the right kind of family, it's actually pro-children. It's actually the society is organized for your children to thrive. If you come from the right kind of families that's organized in the right way with the culture, with the right cultural institutions, which also means institutions that'll protect them from the market, that like is organized to predate them, right? So we have a market society that's organized as a predatory force on the people who come from weak families. But if you come from a strong family, you could use the market to your advantage, and your kids are immune in a way. So when we think that our society is anti-children, that's both true and not true. It's anti some people's children. It's actually pro some other people's children, as long as they come from the right family. And remember, when I say life is PG, that just means it needs parental guidance. It doesn't mean it's for kids. And then what if you skip the PG part and go straight to R? You don't really know what's going on because you weren't actually weaned on the PG stuff, right? So, the long story runs that as infants, as children, we come in knowing nothing and able to do nothing. We can't actually do anything. We're shown how to do anything and have things done for us, and our wants are interpreted by our parents. And our parents don't deal with us in general. They deal with us in a particular way, which is different from other people's parents dealing with them in a particular way. So all care that's given to children is particular in character. And that particular is going to have particular kinds of blind spots or particular infelicities that might get you raised technically, insofar as it gets you aged without dying, but without like the cultural commitment of and the cultural insight of good leadership, right? So people always think that when I talk about family resources, I'm just talking about money, and I'm not just talking about money. Actually, I think money is important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is culture. It's very expensive. It's very expensive to make up for a bad family culture. You can have, and I know a lot of rich people who are bad parents who have had to like pay for the multiple rehabs and the multiple screw ups that come with multiple lawyers involved and the multiple private schools, all of that stuff that comes with the therapist, all of that stuff comes with like a bad family culture. So thinking that money is the issue, it's actually cheaper just to have the right family culture. But the right family culture isn't something that just kind of comes to you anywhere except YouTube. By the way, if you appreciate the way I'm talking, I think you should go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, because you're not going to get someone who tells you that most parents are bad at parenting from other people, right? And yeah, like, other people won't tell you that. It's very important for you to have a morning routine with your children. I don't mean morning, get them up and get them ready for bed. I'm talking about morning developing a serious skill. I'm from Southern California, so I saw this with like swimmers who always have morning practice. That's part of the discipline of the sport. So it gets you up, gets you used to like a specialized excellence in the morning when you're the most serious. And, you know, the Mormons also, they have morning seminary before school. So you in your household should have a morning excellence disciplining. It doesn't have to be swimming. It doesn't have to be seminary, but it should be something. There should be something you should do with your kids before they get to school that trains them for excellence. And then for the rest of their life, that's just part of what it is, right? And no, like I said, nobody else is telling you this. I'm telling you this now. Don't screw up. And people will look at you crazy. There's a defensive lineman. I'm going to hit the opening, and then I'm going to come back to you with the story.
To the beach, y'all. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front. To the beach, y'all. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front. To the beach, y'all.
So Aaron Donald, I was reading. I mean, football isn't really my thing because I just think of CTE and it's just so hard. But I was reading about Aaron Donald because he came up for some reason, and I just kind of Googled him. And, came from working class parents. His dad got him up at 4:30 in the morning to do, for conditioning, starting at 12 before school. This is working class black dad. Working class black dads will change the world if you just give them a little bit of rope. Working class black dad got his kid up, didn't know anything else, but knew that if I get my kid up at 4:30 in the morning to do something consistently, he's going to be excellent at it. Now, I don't think you should do this for football, but I do think you should do this for something. My kids play music, before class for an hour, before school, they have morning practice. That's just what their life looks like. And that's just what their life is known to look like. That's just what their life will always look like. And what I want that to instill in them is that you wake up and work towards excellence before you eat breakfast. That's just part of what it is. And a lot of people screw up childhood. They just think that childhood's for indulging the crap out of their children. So their child will be happy. And then they're surprised when their child is like 8, 9, 10 and can't do anything and is averse to doing anything because they now feel entitled to be happy all the time. If you just get an end around that, and like I know a lot of women in the, and I'll get in trouble for calling women women. So a lot of women in the comments will be like, you should just let the kids be kids. No, you're just bad parents. Like, no. Kids are future adults, and you should train them that way. And you know what? They'll get more joy. They won't get the wrong kind of entitlements unless you give them the wrong kind of entitlements. And they'll get more joy out of life because they'll actually be able to discipline themselves into doing things rather than you're brats who then you're surprised like a brat, right? So get your kids up in the morning, get them doing things. Yeah, well, getting someone at 4:30 for conditioning is awful physical advice. Yeah, in a way, but that's presuming that they're going to bed when like your kids are going to bed. You get your kids to bed at 6:37. All right, so I'm just saying that Aaron Donald, his dad was onto something, and you need to be onto something with your kids, or your kids will also be also around, especially if you're black. Especially if you're black. If you don't have a plan for your kids, if you're a black parent, then just know that the world does. Also, what you need to know is that life is PG. When they make these movies, when they make the world, when they make their institutions, they're presuming that you come from a certain kind of family. And if you don't come from that certain kind of family, the institution's not for you. You're an outside looking in while you look for the people who come from that certain kind of, while you see the people who come from that certain kind of family thrive. They won't tell you this. They'll say the institution's for all kids, but then yet the kids who come from a certain kind of family thrive. I'm telling you that you need to make an effort to actually realize that certain kind of family in your family, right? So these institutions, colleges, aren't made for all students. They're made for students from a certain kind of family. Jobs aren't made for all people. They're made for people from certain kinds of families. Right? It's just not what we talk, and it's how your family relates to that profession, or how your family relates to that industry, or how your family relates to that passion. It's not about the individual. It's about the individual that emerges through a particular kind of family. So you need to take family planning very seriously. And I'm not talking about abortion. I'm just talking about how you organize the rhythm of your family to instill certain sorts of intellectual and ethical habits as part of what it is to be a blank. They need to know that the last name is as important as their first name, and that the first name doesn't come from, emerge out of nothing, right? So what it is, my kids know what it is to be an Osei-Frimpong. Your kids should know what it is to be a blank. And, other parents will look at you like you're crazy or you're abusive. Let them have their screw-up kids who just do what they want. And you take my advice and it'll end up being better. All right. So life is a matter of parental guidance. And if you don't have that parental guidance, you're looking at the institutions from the outside. Or if your parental guidance is bad. Look, if you have fed bad stories about the world, or like self-indulgent stories about the world from 4 to 14 or from 4 to 11, then it'll take you to like 25 or 30 for you to actually for you to figure out what's what. Unless you're like super attracted or super athletically gifted. For the most part, if you're fed nonsense, then it takes you like decades to figure out what's nonsense and what's truth. Because the nonsense will always be laced with a little bit of truth. But, a lot of parents like somehow tell their kids that the most important thing is money. And then the kids find other ways of making money in a way that the parent didn't really think through. And so now the parents undermine themselves because they've been teaching the kid that the most important thing is to make money. And now they're surprised that they raised a mercenary hustler, or they've been telling their kids that the most important thing is to be like independent or whatever. And now they're surprised when like their child can't keep a spouse or doesn't want kids, or like is selfish, because they don't want anyone depending on them or to be dependent upon anyone. So they're like bad partners. So there are all of these ways of screwing up the advice you give your kid from 4 to 14 that you don't know that you're screwing up, but you are. And if you actually do that right, it's wonderful. But if you don't do it right, it's really kind of unfortunate, and you'll be paying for it in lots of ways when you watch your adult child not do so hot for all these reasons that you don't know why, but it was because you were just kind of not as wise of a parent as you thought you were. By the way, once again, if you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com. Kick in. Other liberals will tell you that, like, oh, just let the kid do what they want and let's make sure that they're happy and that they enjoy with their life. No, that's garbage. They'll enjoy what you give them the parameters to enjoy, and that will be that, and they'll live a more fulfilling life because of it. Thank you for your time. Don't be afraid to be a parent, so that it gets easier as they get older and not harder. You just have to go in with a vision and a plan starting from the beginning. Screw their wants. You're not teaching if they're not crying. All right, take care. Bye.